what really happened was I ran into you under a bridge in Birmingham. She was sobbing. And I remember thinking, I've never seen somebody so beautiful, so heartbreakingly, you know,
Heartbroken.
tearing up thinking about it.
And, the touch was just like, oh, that vibration. I've almost dreamt about that my whole life, and now it's here. Now you're with me. It was like when you're watching a movie and suddenly a frame just splices in out of nowhere and it's a completely different movie. And then it's gone, but you can't get rid of what you saw. It was like the Matrix, all the numbers fell. Thank you. I forgive you.
Please forgive me.
I forgive you. I love you.
Welcome to Beyond the Veil, stories of twin flames, divine union, and mystical encounters. Sit back, relax, and listen to your story today. So my next guests are my very dear friends, Don and Julia. They are international touring musicians with Rod Stewart. And Julia is a beautiful artist, painter, and they're both creatives and energy workers. And I'm so excited to have them tell you all their story. So Don and Julia, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Kimber.
It's good to see you.
So good to see you too. So happy that you're here. I'm so grateful.
Thank you for inviting us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're all beaming.
I know, beaming.
so
We
long.
haven't seen each other for a couple of years,
I
so
know.
it's
Yeah.
really exciting.
So it's kind of like a reunion.
It is like a reunion. Yeah, we're all very interconnected.
Yes,
So,
I would say that's very much true.
I forget how it feels when we get together. There's an energy that is instantly there, and it was like that from the moment we met you. I think you would agree.
oh, completely.
And it stays that way no matter how long we're apart.
Yeah.
No matter how much we're together. It's
Didn't we
amazing.
meet in Whole Foods and we kept passing each other and we're like, wait a minute.
We
I
were
know
talking
you.
about this the other day because I think we saw you at True Food a couple of times.
Yeah.
And we just had this rapport, and you and I talked about yin yoga. And then there was that time in Whole Foods.
Yeah.
I feel like
We kept passing each
we
other. Like,
literally kept turning the corner of an aisle and bumping into each other. And I think it happened 3 times, maybe 4. And the last time we looked at each other and we said, we need to talk.
yeah, let's
We
sit
need
down.
to get each other's numbers because something's going on.
Yeah, it was
being-
really magical. It was
Yeah.
like an instant recognition. So
Yeah.
beautiful. So I would love to hear your guys' beautiful love story because it's just very inspiring and magical. So go ahead and tell us your story.
All right. Well, I guess we really need to start when
At the beginning.
at the beginning when we first met, and it was very much an office romance. It just wasn't a regular office. It was a rehearsal studio in Burbank, and it was my first day. I just joined Rod's band, so I was very kind of nervous.
We'd
and-
sort of changed. A lot of members had been changed right before she showed up, and she was one of the replacements or just part of the shift.
Yeah.
And so it was the first day. I got there early, because I always like to get early, in a big, giant place where like even the Stones rehearse and stuff like that, and out by Burbank. And
Yeah, you were the
she
first.
Was,
I was already there.
She was already there.
because I wanted to get there early to set up.
swirling around. My first impression was she's just swirling around. She's too
Just
busy. It's too
farting
busy.
about because I just needed to look busy and like I knew what I was doing, and then Don walked in, and he wasn't in a particularly good space, were you?
No, I wasn't. Yeah, it's true. My headspace wasn't good about the change of the regime in all bands, not just Rod's. A lot of people come and go. It's just the nature of things. And a person that I'd been working with I'd worked with him for 15 years prior to working with Rod, and then we'd already worked for like a decade with Rod, and he got let go. And so I wasn't very happy about that, and having to work somebody new in, and it was also a time where, and this isn't going to sound particularly great the way I say this, but this was like a long time ago. It was like a lot of girls were coming into the band, and it was.
I was number 7.
Yeah,
so
number
I
7.
tipped the balance.
But I didn't think of that. I just thought, I was walked in. I go, are there language restrictions? Because I'll tell you exactly what I thought. In my mind, I thought, not another girl. The minute I thought that, I went, oh, like that, somewhere. So I was like, what was that?
It's
I
like
had like the spasm, like somebody punched me in the stomach, which I think you may have told me, or somebody said, is known as a Kundalini jolt. I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
I didn't know that at the time.
Yep.
And so it was we
It's
spoke
like
a
a
little bit, and then we just got to playing, and I wasn't really thinking much about her, but the minute she started playing, all of us guys were in a row. She was behind us. None of the other girls were there yet, and she was just playing tambourine, but it wasn't just tambourine. Her pocket was unbelievable. It was out of this world. It was like having Elton John's guy with us.
to
And we,
explain the word pocket for those of you who
yeah,
don't know what Don's talking about. It's a musical term meaning where you place the notes or where you
or
hit
where you place the
you
rhythm, because it's
yeah.
all that's all the glue that does this that makes things sound like rock and roll or
Like
jazz
the
or
bass
whatever.
player and the drummer will have a certain pocket, which just
She
gives
was
the band a
natural,
feel.
just natural, and all of us guys turned around, looked at each other behind her back, and went, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and I didn't really know
tambourine.
yeah.
this. I was just busy, like, I was kind of in triage mode because, anyway, let's not go too
So
far
that yeah,
down that road.
that's the stage of what it looked like and felt like.
Yeah, the Kundalini jolt thing, which we didn't even know what it was at the
Oh, and the
time.
next 2 days, I was actually next
Oh,
week
that's
I was
right.
deathly ill. I had the flu.
Yeah,
I
Kundalini
was
jolt.
sick as a dog. And I
Yeah.
barely made it to our first gig at the Troubadour. I was
That's right.
so sick. Just waves of nausea for days, for
Yeah.
days. And, you know, so somehow I got through it and I eventually got well again. But
yeah, but
that kind of just all settled down. She became a part of the band and didn't really think much. I was coming out of another relationship, and that was kind of still, it wasn't on or off, but we were still in touch as friends. And she was
another Brit,
another Brit who grew up really close to her. And
same part of
that was weird.
the United Kingdom.
But I was just 2 long marriages, both 19 years, and then went kind of quickly into relationship with this other girl, and I was done. I was just like, I just want to go back to the ranch and just live by myself, please. And so the band got together, and it all worked out, and it kind of felt good. And now we're all working, and I don't really recall paying much attention to each other.
No, we were just
Early
colleagues
on.
for a long,
Yeah.
long time. We met in April 2013, and then over the next few months, we were on the road together, working a lot. And the weird thing was we kept bumping into each other in various cities, in parks or botanical gardens. We would literally find ourselves in the same spot.
I'd lost my hanging out buddy and stuff like that, and I just thought, I'm going to start going to parks, and so I did, and we were
We would
always
end up-
running into each other at parks to the
Yeah.
point where we finally said, there's one in Belfast, maybe we should go to that one. I hear it's really cool.
Yeah, so
Strange.
we would we started doing it deliberately after a while because we were like, well, we both obviously like, in all the cities we travel through, we like to go to places where there's nature so we can kind of ground and do whatever it is that we want to do to make ourselves feel sane. And that's what we both were drawn to doing. So we just gradually got to know each other over the sort of May, June into early July. And Don also kind of offered me a lifeline because I was actually sick when I joined the band. I had a thyroid condition, Graves' disease, and I'd had it for about a decade at this point. And I had another episode of it I was going through, and he spoke to me about somebody that he knew who was a healer that could help me.
Actually, what really happened was I ran into you under a bridge in Birmingham. She was sobbing, and I remember thinking, I've never seen somebody so beautiful, so heartbreakingly,
Heartbroken.
tearing up thinking about it. And I said, I think I know somebody who can help you, because you kind of explained what was going on. And I had been to a healer because I'd had cancer, and he totally, I don't want to say sorted it out, he saved my life.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we work with him to this day. He's a friend to this day. Anyway, I turned her on to him. And
Yes, and I so didn't believe in any of that stuff. I was like, well, thank you I appreciate the thought. I'll think about it, because I just was my story was I'd had this for 10 years and my mother had it before me. It was nothing that I could fix or do anything about, and that was that. So it was about another month until I decided finally to call this guy. And I remember calling him just before I flew to Vegas to do Rod's
His
residency.
name's Howard Wills, by the way. He does have a name.
Yes, Howard. Howard, we love you. And
Yeah.
and so he worked on me over the phone. He's based in Kauai, and I was in the UK. Flew out to Vegas, and again, Don and I are just hanging out. We're having fun. We're kind of having movie nights in the hotel. We're cooking together.
Because in Vegas, you work a couple nights, and then the rest of the week you have off,
Mm.
which is brutal in Vegas. So we were like, let's just go. You want to watch a movie? And we'd go watch it. But then we'd like, let's just do it here.
And we would just hang out.
We just hang out.
And I think, really, I was very, very shut down. I think my heart was kind of in the deep freeze. I didn't know that I was developing this very deep connection with John, even though he had that sort of initial jolt, which was super strong.
Which I still didn't know, what that was way back then. I was just, now we're just hanging out. It's fun.
But it really came to a head about 2.5, 3 weeks later when I was ready to fly back to the UK. So the residency was done and I was going home. And I remember Don said, I'll come down to your room and say goodbye, because he was like a couple of floors above me in the hotel. And I said, great, because I got a bunch of stuff in my fridge you should take back to LA, because I hate wasting food.
And I think at this point, I had started thought, I think there's some kind of connection here. I don't know what it is, and I'm in no rush, and I don't even think I should even be doing it or want to do it, but I can tell something's going on. I can tell I really like hanging out and having fun, for the first time in a long time on a job I'd already done for a decade plus. And
I think Don knew he had feelings for me, and I think you were consciously just hanging back because I think you knew that I didn't know what I was experiencing.
I just didn't want a relationship still. I was just like, I just need to be slow in my life at this point.
Yeah. So he comes down to my room and I get all my stuff out of the fridge, and I'm packing everything up and I'm being very organized. And then he's saying, well, this is goodbye. I'll see you in September. So we had a whole month where we weren't going to see each other.
So many songs built into our relationship. I'll see you in September.
So he hugged me. And that was, I believe, the first real physical contact that we'd had, even though we'd known each other for like 5 months.
Well, I
at this point.
instinctively, I don't know why I did this, but I hugged her, but then I put my hand on the back of her head.
Yeah.
And kind of just
and my head kind of went onto his chest.
Yeah.
I think the other way around. And he put, one arm was around me and the other one was on the back of my head. And my body did that whole matrix wobble. Everything in the room went wiggly and squiggly. And I was like, ooh, what was that? And I think that was my activation, because after that, I go to the airport, I'm all packed, but I'm texting him as he's texting me. These texts are going, synchronizing, crossing paths midair. And I get on the plane, and it was a really bizarre experience. I sit down in my seat. There's this colleague next to me, and she said, let's watch this movie together. Let's synchronize our screens. And it was this really it was a terrible movie. It was kind of like a remake of Sleeping with the Enemy. Off we go watching this movie about this woman who leaves this horrible relationship, runs away, falls in love with this widowed guy and his kids. And I'm like, the bottom lip starts to go, and then the tears are coming, and I could not stop. Thankfully, she went to sleep, and I'm bawling and bawling, and it's like I'm thawing from here. My heart has cracked open, and it's about an 11-hour flight. I think I cried for close to 7 hours of that flight. I couldn't stop. I kept getting up to go to the bathroom. Thought, okay, I'm calming down now. And I'd get another supply of tissues, and then I'd go back to my seat. Off I'd go again. And it was the only way I can really describe it in words was it was like an awakening. I was having a dialogue with God, which was the first time in my life I'd ever had that. And I was so grateful. I remember saying, thank you for everything everything in my life, because I realized everything I've been through has led me to this point. And it was just boom, I was open. And the sun went down. You know how it does on a plane when you're traveling across time zones, and then it went up, and I was just I was just in this zone. And I remember getting off the plane, and I was in shock. I was just like a newborn. You know, I was experiencing life in a different way, profoundly different way that I couldn't really share with my Brit crew colleagues. You know, we were just standing at the baggage belt, and I've got my sunglasses on, and it's Heathrow, and it's foggy and raining, and I think they're all looking at me and like, who does she think she is?
It's gone to her
Jackie
head already.
O?
Now she thinks he's a rock star.
Walking around with glasses.
So I get back to sleepy Suffolk in England, and I said, look, I think we were exchanging emails, and I said, something's happened to me. I said, between you and I think maybe Howard, you've done something to me, and I can't explain it, but I'll speak to you on Sunday. I have a yoga workshop to teach, and because I was still teaching yoga at the time, so off I go. And we had this very adult conversation about just under a week later, where we were both on the phone saying, I have feelings for you. I have feelings for you too. But I need to take this really, really slowly, because I feel so open and vulnerable and kind of scared to get involved again. Because this movie I'd watched, it was a little bit of, you know, my life. I had been in quite a couple of very abusive, emotionally abusive relationships. And then there'd been this 7-year hiatus, and I'd shut everything down and packed everything away. And now it was all opening. It was like this big risk. Can I open my heart again, even though there was no stopping it, it felt like. So we spoke, didn't we? And we had this conversation.
We kind of made I don't know, it was just
we said, okay, we're going out.
Or something.
This is it, we're going out. And of course we were going out, but we weren't together, because he was in LA and I was in England.
No, you just said, we'll talk, because you had to do that thing. And I think it was more like a week till we talked. And we said, well, let's just kind of see what happens when we get back together too.
Yeah.
But we both acknowledged we really were starting to feel things for each other.
Yes.
I was coming from like too many relationships and being too just all over the place, and she was coming from like side of being so shut down. So
And by myself,
I had
for
to
a long
process that. She had to process hers. But so we got kind of cleaned up all that schmutz we'd gathered in life to finally get to that what we call our sacred union with each other.
Yeah. And so we met up again about a month later. Everybody came to the UK. We're going to be touring Europe. And it took us months after this, I should add, for anything really to become very physical. It was such a slow, reverent, respectful.
Oh, yeah, it just went on.
Very old-fashioned, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it wasn't like I said. It's like I'm making it sound like it went on and on and on. It wasn't. It was heaven. It was so wonderful. Not my experience as. I mean, look at me. You know, I'm a rock and roll musician kind of type, and I had not lived that life for quite a while. It was like that in my first marriage, but I was loving it. It's like no pressure, no nothing, just a friend.
Yeah,
pure.
just
A really deep friend.
really just we talked and
A
talked.
soulmate, you know. I mean, we were using those words back then too, but I don't think we didn't say it to each other. But I was thinking, God, this is like where have we been together?
We
all
realized
this time?
too that we had lots of different aspects of like our journey in common, and we even share these weird kind of matching birthmarks.
Yeah, we have the same birthmark on the back of our necks. Wow. Mine's white and hers is pink. Or do I
Yeah,
have
kind
it
of
wrong?
pinkish red. Yeah, mine's
Yeah.
like the negative to your.
Yeah,
Little things like that.
Yeah.
Was just, this is kind of.
they're about the same size too.
So cool.
And so I think the next big part of our story was we barely been dating.
It's like you've said this before, but you haven't said it yet. It's for you, and I think for both of us, it was like a series of activations.
Absolutely. Like it was like when we met, it was like, okay, that's the beginning. Now you guys need to go through this and this and this to clean this stuff out so you can really do what you've come here to do. So it was the first few years was like a roller coaster, but literally we're physically together and we're kind of tentatively dating. We haven't told anybody in the band, or Rod doesn't know or anything, keeping it on the down low. And then
But wait, I'd
then
gone
we
and stayed with you and your parents, right?
briefly, you'd met my folks. Yeah, you'd come because you were in the UK, and we had a few days around these promo dates we were doing. But then we're off to Europe. And one of the first places that we visited to do a show was Poland. We get there, and there's a day. We have a day off. And Rod's been banging on about, we're going to go to Auschwitz. Like, it's a tourist destination, which
No, he was like, we were in
guess-
England and we did a TV show, and at the end of the TV show, we were having a beer, all of us, and he goes, I'm going to take you guys to Auschwitz. And I was like, I've been there before. And I was like,
it's like,
you're going to be
just
kidding.
everybody get their pints
It's
and go,
horrible.
yay. It's like, oh, okay.
Because he's a total World War II fanatic, to be fair. I get
Gotcha.
it. It's why I went too. I had all those places when I first went to Germany. But he was very excited, and we were all kind of like,
Okay.
hey.
That sounds like fun, So off we go to Auschwitz this particular day, and what followed was this. I think of it as a past life healing for myself, because I experienced just the most powerful, indescribable emotions when I got there. So this is like September. I'm just going to back up because I had a premonition. I had a dream in June of that year when we were in Europe again. We were in Amsterdam, and I had this bizarre, almost nightmare, where I was walking into this place in the dream, and I walk under this archway, and I'm suddenly ambushed by this dark, dark energy. It's almost like squid ink in water. It just surrounded me from all directions, and
you
I'm
told
terrified.
me you'd had this dream many times in your life too. This was like
The energy of
been
this
with you
dream,
forever.
had been in my dreams since I was a child. Even my good dreams had a quality like this, but this dream, this particular moment in my life was the most intense it had ever been. And then fast forward to September, we're at Auschwitz. You have to go under an archway to enter any of the camps. And
You enter as if all the Jewish people entered. You enter through the walkway they enter in. And there's an arch that said, work will set you free. And then off to the side, there was a spot where a band that they'd culled from all the people in the concentration camp played to welcome people into
the
this
prisoners
house
in.
of death.
Yeah.
She gets about under that bridge, and I hear a funny sound. I swear I look back at you, you were on your knees. She had fallen to her knees, and she was just kind of like,
I was shaking.
Shaking.
I could barely walk.
then I look at her and I go, oh my God, she's dressed like a Polish refugee. She had on like a weird kind of beret type hat. She had on boots up to here. She had,
I had
on
a
this
little
weird
red
gypsy type
skirt.
skirt.
It was-
And I was like, oh my God, what's happening to time? This is weird. So I help her up. And I said, do you want to keep going? Or
Yeah.
I'll just wait here with you.
Donna-
I'd been. I had no desire to go back. And
And
she said, no, we got to do it.
I said, I think I need to do this, but I don't want to do the tour, because they'd organized a private tour for us, and the band were all walking away from us, and I said, I can't do that.
And oh, by the way, Rod got about
Oh yeah, that's
he got
right.
about a mile away from it, and it was like pissing raining, and
And there was a big traffic
I'm not
jam.
doing this today.
And we watched his limo
watched
just
him
turn around,
so
and
we
we're
all
like,
kept going.
great, okay.
So, but think about that. This was a huge place of activation for us. He puts it in motion, and then
then
it's almost
leaves.
like he goes, "Oh, you're on your way. I can take off."
Yeah.
Wild.
Because
Yeah.
when you hear like what went on for us, it's like
Yeah,
I to this day I swear to God, it's happening. It's unbelievable.
it's like time stopped. We watched the band go into one of the buildings, because the buildings have all been sort of turned into parts of the museum now.
And there were a lot of Japanese tourists
yeah.
too, and it's just a light rain. It's gray, and it's like miserable.
There's no bird song.
And
That's a very eerie place to be.
There's a lot of people around. We watched them all kind of just go away. We go, let's go in this building.
Yeah, so we went into this particular building, and a series of events followed, and I collapsed basically, and just this sort of stuff was coming out of me, like this very guttural kind of physical expression of what was really predominantly three basic emotions: fear, anger, and grief. Mostly fear and grief. And Don just rushed into the room, picked me up off my knees.
Well, we were in a room where they had, this is kind of the place to talk about this stuff, but just where they collected a lot of hair, clothing, suitcases, everything from the children. This was just a children's room. And they, ungodly, photographed every child that they'd brought.
They documented with photographs.
I walked up to, it was a picture of her as a child. I'd seen pictures of her as a child. I saw it on the wall. I was like, holy shit. I hear her drop. She's now laying on the floor in another room. I go kind of pick her up and say, let's get out of here. We go outside.
And we sat down on the step,
Raining
didn't we?
still. It's grim as can be. The energy is beyond belief in that place, as you can only imagine. And I suddenly go, there's nobody here.
Yeah.
Everybody had
The
disappeared.
place was empty. And we must have sat there for close to an hour. And it was getting dark and it was still rain. It was just quiet, soft, like that just steady rain. And it was cold. And I was just processing. I don't even know what. All this just heavy grief was just coming up. And Don was just sitting there next to me holding my hand. And we didn't see a soul. I don't even know where the band went because I kept thinking, where is everybody? It was like we'd shifted onto another timeline, into another dimensional space to process this stuff. And the final thing that we did was we went all the way to the end of the camp. We walked towards the extermination wall, what remains of it. And as we got closer to it, the energy intensified, and we were both sort of, our knees were knocking, and we just started doing forgiveness prayers and peacemaking prayers, anything we could pull out of the ether. Then we went back to the van, and we just sat in the van and waited till the band got back. And it felt like we'd been there for hours. But really, the culmination of all this for me, the magic part, I think, is about 3 days later, we were back in Greenwich in London. And I woke up in my bed, because we still weren't sleeping in the same bed. I woke up by myself and I sat bolt upright because I'd been dreaming. And that feeling that I'd had in my dreams my entire life, that dark sort of foreboding energy, had gone. Wow. It had disappeared. And to this day, it's gone. It's like there was a little groove stuck in the record that from this life that I'd had. Because I didn't even question that I'd been there in some form. I know that nobody who goes there can't have an intense experience, but for me, the fact that that energy in my dreams and my subconscious had just lifted was proof enough that I'd experienced a life there and never got out. And it was also the fact that I think I had to be with Don. He had to be there to just prop me up and walk me through it in this life.
Yeah, it's like we were meant to come together in this life and do that. And kind of.
That was right off the bat, pretty much. Like, oh, we're dating, and then boom.
Let's heal that timeline.
That was pretty much, I think we joked, that was kind of our first date. So romantic. And then
intense. Wow.
Oh, it was. And I remember calling my mom and speaking to her the day I had the dream and just sobbing and she was sobbing because she said, yes, you were there. I know you were there.
Yeah, her mom didn't want her to go there at all. She knew.
Yeah.
She knew.
But for me, although it was harrowing, I was like, wow, I'm lighter. There was a layer that for some reason I had to process this time around, and it's gone.
Sense.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, and terrifying and incredible.
And you bring this up because as we were sort of talking about, okay, we want to talk about this with you. You realize in particular that it's been a series of activations,
yes.
particularly for you. It has for me too, but in a much different way than for her.
I had to almost play catch up, I think, to where Don was at with his, work that he'd been doing. And his activation from being healed by Howard Wills.
That was huge. Shifted my life permanently.
So then, end of the year, Don just comes to stay with me, and I'm living
Next activation.
in my parents' house with my parents. And so we put Don in this caravan in the garden, and he's holed up there.
Wintertime, too.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
No,
Over
it was
Christmas.
it was awesome. It was cool. They had a heater and stuff, but it was really, it's
pretty
gorgeous.
basic.
Where their house is just beautiful. It's classic England, You know, it
It's an old
it couldn't be
cottage.
more idyllic. An old cottage from the 1100s, which is gigantic.
Wow.
Cottage, it's more like, it looks like an estate, what you and I would call that. And
Right.
so I was just staying there with them. I was loving it, you know, because the food is so much better and everything. You know, the first time to really, I've been to England so many times, but always in cities. It's real England is out
In
in
the
the country.
country,
It's all about the
yeah.
country. So I was absolutely loving this whole experience.
And we were really, at this point, our love affair was really evolving and we were becoming incredibly close and connected. And I think it was this that about, I would say, 4 to 6 weeks into Don's stay, he was with us for a while. I think this was actually very triggering for my parents and their dynamic, even though I had no idea at the time. But there came a night where things just kicked off, and I was caught in this dynamic. I didn't know it at the time, but some stuff was going on with my mom, which would happen periodically my whole life. And I was sort of dragged into the house, and my dad was like, we need to talk, you know, you've upset your
It was
mother
like
again.
1 a.m. and we had to be in London at like 8 the next morning, which was
We had to get up at
2 hour
5
train ride. So
to
yeah.
get the train. And
So this was, the timing was really not good.
So I was pulled into the house, and there was this big kerfuffle going on. Don's still in the caravan, wondering what the hell's going on. And anyway, I end up going back out to talk to him, and I'm in tears. And it was like, it was an activation. It was a full-on activation for me because, do you remember what you said?
Is there language restrictions to this
You've
show?
already...
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I just looked at her and I just saw a dynamic that I'd seen in a lot of other, not only my partners, but friends and stuff. And and it was like, I'm going to barely get 4 hours and I got to go beg to have my passport worked on. You know, I'm just like, this is, and it just like,
He said that.
everything just went,
He kind of shouted
another
that.
moment where, why that? But another moment where everything just went, the tectonic plates shifted, and
Well-
you take it, because really, this is your story.
When he said that, for the first, I mean, and I'm a late learner. I was 41. What can I say? I just got this. It was like when you're watching a movie and suddenly a frame just splices in out of nowhere and it's a completely different movie. And then it's gone, but you can't get rid of what you saw. It was like the Matrix, all the numbers fell. Or the scenery on the stage fell, and I'm suddenly in the Arctic on this little stage going, oh, this is the world.
Wow.
I saw my family dynamic from this perspective I hadn't seen it from before. I could see myself and my dad and my mom, particularly this trio. I have a brother, but it was really this weird emotional dysfunction that was going on between the three of us. And it came and it went. And then I stood there and I was just bawling and in shock and going, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And at that point, Don threw me a lifeline. And he said, look, I know someone that can help you. She's kind of like a therapist or a coach. She can definitely help you if you want to work this out. Because it was sort of like I'm not going to hang around for this. I'm too old.
Yeah, I was
I'm too old for this shit.
You know, this has been a big part of my life, and I've worked actually with the person I referred to kind of get rid of that part of me that sort of plays into that with my partners and the pieces that I carried. Why partners are attracted to me for that stuff, which was huge stuff for me.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which
So-
you've seen clearly.
Yeah.
And
So he just said, I have a friend and she can work with you and she can help you through this. And I remember very clearly saying, I was just crying and I was shaking my head and hanging my head. And I said, I don't know if I can do this. But I said, I want to try. I want to try. So I made the decision right there in that moment. It was just like bang, 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 bang. Seeing it, feeling it, going, how much work do I have to do? It's almost like that. If you want to talk about twin flames, it was like the baggage suddenly went, jun, 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 and I'm staring at a pile of suitcases, and Don's over there going, hi, and I'm going, hi, what do I do with all this? So I got to work. I mean, I rolled my sleeves up, put my boots on, and I waded in there, and I would have a session. I think I must have had a session once a week with this lovely woman. Her name's Laurie Goldstein. And she worked with me over Skype. It was Skype back then. We would have a Skype once a week. And occasionally there would be like the 911 emergency call where I'd be like, and we just unpacked what was going on for me.
Yeah, it was a process.
week.
It was a process. There were highs and lows. It would get really kind of sorted, and then something else would come up. You know, as happens.
As process is all about.
Processing in relationships. And I also want to say, I didn't know anything about twin flames back then.
Yeah.
You know, but it's kind of more like around the time we met that suddenly I started reading about this. I think that's when it came up in the culture.
Right.
And I was like going, Jesus, this sounds familiar.
But again, it was like I was afforded this fresh take on what I was experiencing. And it's like I'd been this sleeper cell. And suddenly I was dealing with, how do I extricate myself? I was almost like the pin between these two cogs of my parents, very much a parentified child. So I started doing with Laurie, I did a lot of inner child work and working out that pivotal moment of like, oh, this wasn't my fault. And it wasn't mine to fix. And this huge release, and then anger. How dare you put me in this position? And then trying to access the compassion all the time. Occasionally I would, you like 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, that classic Fibonacci spiral of growth, just gradually heading up there, piecemeal. And there would be the moments where I felt, I can't leave them behind. I was growing so fast. I was expanding. And yet then Don's on the other side of this. And how can I bring them both? No, I can't, because they didn't want to come with me. So I had to...
Yeah, you had a real sort of...
survivor's guilt or something.
Survivor's guilt. It was very, very real, you know.
But I choose you. And can I choose you? Am I allowed to choose? And he was like, well, I'm here and I'm not budging. It was very Don.
Wow.
Yeah. He was like, I'm over here if you want to come over here. And I'm like, but. It's like, no. You got to let them go with love. And I gradually just process. And you know what it's like when you open that door, you can't close it again. The work begins whether you want it there or not.
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And also, it sounds like it was a tremendous amount of really dramatic, fraught work and stuff. But in between, it was just very, very sort of, again, what I call sacred. It's very kind and loving, our relationship with each other without all this other stuff. When we were just alone together, as would happen on the road and stuff. It was amazing.
What kind of happened over the first few years with us was we would do this. There would be these very intense, white-hot moments of growth.
Flare-ups,
yeah.
sort of.
And I would often end up in this place that I call my everything is broken place. It was like the room at the top of the house in the attic where all the toys that broke. And I would get to a point often when we were fighting early on
I forgot about this.
Total despair and despondence, like, this is it, it's broken, there's no way to fix it. Which was, of course, as I worked through it, a feeling that I had as a young child. Because my mother's volatility was so huge, there was this point of kind of like Piglet in the Winnie the Pooh books. He falls over, the balloon bursts, and it's the end of the world. It's the end of the friggin' world. I thought, this is it. And maybe on some level, I'm going to die. But of course, my child, the more I listened to her and sat with this feeling and tried to bring in that very gentle, unconditional, divine mother love to witness, to be the parent to her that she never had. It's like, oh. And it wasn't that long ago that I realized I don't go to the everything is broken place anymore. I don't go there anymore. And it took a few years. And it would come up periodically, to start with more frequently, and then it gradually got less. And I remember it got really intense around the time we were getting married. Because my mother, again, just couldn't handle the fact that we weren't going to be getting married in the UK.
Which was another kind of interesting, typically us kind of thing, was she was talking to immigration, because working over here as a Brit with Rod and everything, it was just colossal hassle after a while. And
the visa thing.
So got an immigration person to help out and just see what could be done. I remember hung up the phone one time. She goes, "We've got to get married."
It wasn't
And I was
particularly
like-
romantic.
I was like, "Okay,
Practical.
okay, yeah."
We've got to get married.
It was just like, I don't know. It was just like it was preordained. You know, we'd been waiting for her to say that or something. It was really
Yeah.
weird, and it was wonderful.
But there was a
Awesome.
meeting of, like energies of like my mother was like,
Yeah,
She-
that threw them out of that
it did.
dynamic.
And
out a
I
lot, big
think
time.
I took, initially I misread it as like her standing her ground, but really she was heartbroken because she wanted to be there. So again, there was a lot of upheaval around that. And we also had another very weird magical experience on the day that we actually got married. Because we got married at the lake shrine in the temple, which was just
So magical.
so magical. I mean,
Yeah, there was only like
we had 7 guests, I think.
I think our guests were outnumbered by the number of saints that were up on the inside of there. You know, seriously.
Yeah,
And
I
they don't
mean-
let anybody get married there anymore. We were like
No,
one
you
of
have
the
to be a
last.
member now, and we have been one of the last couples
Yeah.
to get married there without having to join the fellowship. Self-realization. But that morning, I was having my makeup done in our
By
apartment.
my ex-wife.
Yeah, 9. Yeah,
You know, we're close still.
She's
Eventually,
amazing.
finally, again after many years of not.
She
but
is
She
amazing. I
volunteered.
adore
She
her.
offered because
Yeah.
she's the makeup
She's so good,
artist.
so
and
yeah.
she was in there. It's so strange. In the
Just-
apartment where she and I lived forever, and
Yeah.
now we're living there, and she's doing. I'm getting ready to hang my tie or whatever.
Well, she was coming to the wedding too.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
she's
she was
like,
coming to the wedding.
Yeah, I can totally do your makeup.
And I hear her go, like
Sweetie?
something like, Dawn, like that. And I run into the room, and she's kind of holding Julia.
She caught me on the way down.
And I grabbed the other side of you, and
I
laid her
fainted.
down. She was completely
I
out.
crashed
She
to
had
the
passed
ground.
out.
I passed out.
And I thought, well, this wedding's off.
Yeah, this was, I think this was like 10:30, and then we were getting married
No,
at 1.
1.
And
This ain't gonna happen.
but here's the really crazy part. So, how long do you think I was out?
You were out for at least 3 or 4 minutes to the point.
No, it wasn't that long. A minute, I think.
No. It was a couple minutes because I remember us just looking at each other going, and finally I said, I think I'm going to call 911 because it felt way too long.
And at that point, I
just that
opened my
minute,
eyes.
She kind of opened her eyes and like,
Meanwhile, I went. It was like a wedding reception.
Where you went?
Yes. I was in a room, a huge room full of people, and I could hear glasses chinking, and people were holding each other's hands and shaking hands and hugging, and there was so much warmth and it was loud. People were talking. It was like a big reception, big wedding reception. Gifts were being exchanged. And then I was back. And it was, yeah, it was so wild. And when I opened my eyes, they're both looking over me going, and I'm just going, sweetie, are you okay? And okay, full disclosure, I lost complete control of my I wet myself. I woke up in a...
we're getting married in an hour or so at this
Thankfully,
point.
I didn't
Yeah.
have my wedding dress on. I had my PJs on.
Thank God.
Then I'm like, what happened? And I was like, I went, and they were looking at me like, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I was just, why are you guys looking at me? I'm fine, but it's cold down there. What's going on? So I had to go have a shower and clean up. And so my body I just left, it felt like I completely left and went to this other place where people are actually, I feel, celebrating this union that
so
was
much
about to
sense.
happen.
It took us a while, I think, to figure out that really that was a celebration because a lot of her cousin moved over and his mother moved over to an area really close, which is really remote, to where I'm from. How many times has that happened?
Yeah.
You know, and it just seemed like maybe the whole lineage was celebrating. Yay, another one.
His
made it.
lineage and my lineage.
And your mother was
just-
told you'd move out of the country.
She was
when
when
you were
she
born.
had a birth chart done, a star chart, but that was a pretty trippy experience.
That's
and
really trippy.
And Laurie was actually, my coach was at the wedding, and she said, "Oh yeah, that was just everybody getting together and just going high five. We've done it. They're here. Now they can really get to work."
Yeah.
Which we
did.
Yeah, which we kind of did, and I mean, I would say, really, over the years after that, being on the road, working together as intensively as we've done, we've learned to I mean, to process whatever comes up in a very, we have kind of like a good toolbox. We have, I mean, so many magical things have happened over the years. I've just kind of forgotten and lost count. And
But this is kind of, like I said, I think this is kind of the origin story, you know. It's
yeah,
full, and it seems to
Yeah.
me even when we were talking about, it's just full of activations and moments that were waiting to happen,
yeah.
Makes so much sense.
And then we
which
got
is
to a point during
very
COVID
romantic.
where Don had a moment where he was like, I think I need to do some work on this piece. It was like he left a piece
Oh
behind.
yeah, yeah. And
Remember
it,
that?
didn't. It wasn't all about her. My bit came, and we'll not get into that now. But all my stuff came in a lot later on in the relationship because
Oh,
I'd done a
wow.
lot of relationships. But
Yeah.
once I'd finally gotten past the hurdle I had in the other relationships, which clearly got there really quickly with her, then we really started to grow. I started hitting the wall about some of my stuff. So it's reciprocal. The twin flame thing, the
Yeah.
sacred union thing, it works both ways. Nobody gets out without having to
Oh, yeah.
alive or to do some of the
No.
work.
And
you
there's
know?
always more work to do.
There's
It's not
always
like
more
you're
work to
ever
do.
just like, oh, I'm great now.
No,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I know. And I had kind of fallen in the trap of that. I'd done therapy for gazillion years, healers, all kinds of stuff. I felt really tuned up and really, in a good place. But no,
Never
there's always
get
something.
cocky.
Do you know what I love about your story though? Because usually the feminine is farther ahead than the masculine, and it takes the masculine longer to catch up. But I love that you guys kind of switched it,
Yeah.
where you were more ahead and she was here, so that she could,
Yeah,
and you could hold space for her to rise. Because when my twin and I met, it was like a clash of trauma at one time. And I
Yeah.
think we met too young. I mean, we met when we were 20. So I think that's a totally different story than when you're a full grown adult that's been through cancer, has been through healing.
Yeah.
And it's
Totally.
really nice that you were able to hold that space for her.
Yeah, we were. I think when we very early on, we were. It's like, you're so much older. We're not going to have as much time together. But the more we got to know each other, the more we could see that we both had certain things to do before we met. And I feel absolutely 100% agree with you, Kimber. Don's role, part of his role in this life, was to really hold the space while I had to level up in this series of moments of growth, because it just went chung, chung, chung,
That's amazing.
But now, many, many years past this initial stories that we've been telling, it's balanced now, I'd
Yeah,
say.
it feels that
There are
way.
definitely moments where I've got to just dig in and work, and she kind of floats for a while or will help me, or just, I don't know, it doesn't even go into words anymore. We have, particularly when we're up where it's up at our ranch, it's very, like, we do a lot of this,
Yeah.
and sometimes because it's big enough, we can just be in separate places, and yet there's still the bond, the union. You can feel it at all times. I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah. How do you experience that? Like, what do you feel? Is it just an energetic feeling? Or is there telepathy?
What was the second thing you said?
Telepathy and
There's a little bit of that.
There is.
We can finish each other's
There's a
sentences
feeling in
and
the heart
thoughts.
space.
Yeah.
It's a connection that's I can't put into words, but I think I think we all kind of know it. Basically, we've had it maybe with a parent or something, or somebody we love.
And we've been together for over 10 years now. So I remember when the early years, I couldn't get over how I felt. This was my home.
yeah.
This vibration was such a huge match for me. And now I think I take it for granted a bit because I've been around it for so long. But I remember the early days of just you holding me, and just your hand, the touch was just like, oh, that vibration. I've almost dreamt about that my whole life, and now it's here. Now you're with me, and that it's a given now.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's a divine love. I meet people like a neighbor of ours up there who I'd known for years, but didn't really get to realize how really close we were till we experienced some stuff just up there. He's not a musician or anything. He's a farmer, and I realized I recognized in him. I'm sure we were brothers in one life, easily, because it's the same kind of feel that I have. It's not as big as anything I have for you, but it's the same kind of universal love that you can tell we all share.
Or like a
That's what I'm
familiar
trying to say.
vibration. You know,
Yeah,
when
familiar
you meet
vibration.
people and you go, oh yeah. It's like when we met. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know you.
Yeah. Hi.
You.
Hi
Hi.
Oh
again.
yeah, absolutely. I mean,
How
you
you
guys,
doing?
if ever I doubted it, is when we get off a plane, we go, let's go to the beach. We're so tired.
You remember that day?
I do remember that day.
And we're walking down the beach and we go, there's Kimber.
Yeah,
It's in the middle of February.
February.
I know.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a beach day. It really
No,
wasn't.
it
It was
really
cold
wasn't.
and windy, and we were like, let's
I
go
have
to
the best
beach.
photos of you two. You
So
look
cute.
like such sisters sitting there talking to each other on the beach. I should send those to you.
That was so fun.
Fun. That's so magical. How do you guys activate other people? Like, have you found other people get triggered around you or they want what you have? Has there been an energy of that with other people?
I would say
question.
definitely. Yeah. I mean, I notice very early on, I notice like just little things like if we're out together somewhere on tour and we go into a store and it's empty and within 2 minutes it's full of people and I'm like, oh, there's the energy's kind of bringing people in. And then just, I think I've got used to it now again, but this idea that so many people that we meet just end up going, oh, love you. You guys are just so easy to be around. We're so comfortable around you. You just have.
Yeah, to the point where I'm
It's just-
blanking on who it was, but somebody said to us once, I want more of what you guys have.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
which is a really lovely thing to hear.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't say I know exactly what that is they want, but you know, I get it. It's a love energy. It's a divine energy. It's a sacred energy. It's alchemy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't feel that we've experienced a lot of the averse to that. And people, yeah, which is lovely. I mean, and you know, we do practice a lot of peacemaking and forgiveness wherever we go. We do a set of prayers on stage, so where we bless the audience, we bless the singer, the band, we bless the whole area with love. We try and
The
activate
entire
those.
arena, whatever we're in.
Yeah. And I think
do
that
it.
helps for sure because whether people know it or not, they respond to that vibration. And so I think, yeah, we're blessed. We don't really come across any very negative reactions to our space. It's usually the opposite. Yeah.
I think, talking about if there's a mission of a divine union, sacred union, twin flames, whatever you want to call it, like that's how you guys do your mission by going around the world and blasting love and anchoring in that light in every single place because you guys go to so many places so
We're
many times.
so fortunate
If
that
there
we
is a
do
mission,
that.
that is what we do.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get to go all over the world and be exposed to thousands of people and get to do just even 5 minutes of that.
That's magical.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, like our neighbor will come up and they're going through a horrible time where a member of the family's passing away and it's been really hard for his wife and they've been struggling. He's just drawn to us and the three of us talk and we're all on the same kind of plane together. And he'll say, I want what you guys have. But he's got the same thing. I've watched him do it. I've had incredible experiences with him, like in moments where a kid was going to commit and he
Oh, that's right.
yeah talked to him.
Yeah, with this guy.
A guy roared up our
dro-
road
Yeah.
in the kind of
Late
middle
at
of the
night.
night, and it was unusual. So I call him. I said, Jay, get up here. This is really weird. And it was a
He's a
kid.
young,
And so Jay gets up there, and I go, I got to get my gun. I'll be right up there. And I walk,
as you do in the
I
country.
walk up,
Yeah.
And it's
they're
this
hugging,
teenager.
and the kid's crying.
He
with
walked in
him.
on his girlfriend and she
Yeah.
was with somebody and he was, I don't know why I came up here. I just followed the moon and we're like,
Yeah,
we know why you
He said,
came
up
up
there
here.
on top of that hill is where I could see. Yeah.
You came up here to be around this
Yeah,
and
so
Jay's energy.
Basically,
our
Jay
neighbor.
and I, and particularly Jay that night, blasted
Such a
him with
sweetheart.
love.
Yeah.
Went on, he wanted to kill himself. He went on to graduate high school, went off to college, sent all the info to, it's like, it is in other people too. And I think you kind of, I like to think we kind of attract the
I would
same
think so.
type.
Yeah. For
Yeah.
Sure.
His mother and my dad, I didn't know until until she told me at a party.
His
She's
mom's like
96.
90 yeah.
Yeah, and she's crazy.
She's a firecracker.
Fantastic. She told me they all grew up together out in the same middle of nowhere valley. She goes, well, you know, your dad and I used to go to the movies together. And I was like, what? I didn't know this, because, you know, my uncle was always talking about how he was chasing her around. You know,
She liked
this is all
Howard,
like,
the
I
dad.
believe it's all soul family.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
We'll all see each other again somewhere, you know.
It's like, oh, well, that was a wild ride.
Yeah.
And we, you know, we meet people on our travels on the road
Yeah,
too,
same
like kindred
thing.
spirits, which is just wonderful. Yeah, we're lucky.
Just constantly trying to keep ourselves clean.
Yeah, yeah,
How do you do that?
That's a process,
it is. But we also
but it's fun
do
too.
a lot of, I guess it's prayer work. We have prayers that we do, which are really all about forgiving everybody for everything, and asking everybody forgive us for everything, and then asking we all forgive ourselves for everything. I think one of the big pieces people miss is self-forgiveness, and we do those prayers between us every day, and it's almost also like just learning to open a dialogue between you and whatever you want to call
Well,
it.
what
the
about the
universe,
exercise
divine.
we
Well,
do?
yes.
Yeah, there's this other thing that was taught to us by Howard. Actually,
We-
just saw him do on a kind
We
of a
witnessed
group
him
call.
do this on a
Yeah.
call, and it blew our minds.
Yeah, it was
because
mind-blowing.
He was working
we're
with
doing this.
he was working with a couple. Well, he just kind of picked them. You know, he could see something was off between
And we
these
knew all
two.
these people. COVID, we'd all been on Zooms a lot together.
Gotcha.
So I was
Yeah.
like, something's off with that. They're not getting along together.
And so he
at all.
called on them, and he said, "What's
called
going
on
on?" And it was Willem and Andrea, and Willem said, "Well, Andrea's left knee is really hurting," and Howard said, "Well, that's you. We got to clean that up, haven't we? You know." And so he did this exercise where he basically said, "You're just going to say yes to everything I say to you, both of you." And they were like, "Okay." So he said, "Willem, are you sorry for being stubborn, being an asshole, not listening?" And Willem immediately did what we all do. He started, going in for the defense and the justifying, and Howard went, just say yes. Are you sorry? Yes. So then they got into the rhythm, and they both did it, because then he swapped it out to her, and she, you know how you sit there and you think, oh, it's not me, it's you. And then it's like, oh, well, that told me it's both of us. And by the time he'd finished them both doing this exercise, the energy had completely shifted. The knee pain was gone.
You could see it in
They
their
were
faces too. I
snuggling
was
up
like,
together on the call. It was like, and we were like, we have to do that.
yeah, I was like, we got to do
We
this.
gotta
We got to
do
learn
this.
to do this and make this a thing. And so we did.
So we called it our forgiveness exercise. So if there's anything going on between us, because it was actually Howard that brought this up a while ago with us, because he cleaned us up one day, and we both had separate sessions with him, and we had this schmutz on us, you know, like you do. And I went in thinking, oh, that was me, and he came out thinking, oh, that was me. And Howard kept going, have you two talked yet? And we're like, we're going to talk when we get home. So we were sitting in bed that night, the end of this crazy night, and Don said, well, what happened? You know, I said, I'll go first. I said, he whooped my ass. He told me, he showed me, he said, I've got to stop trying to place my will over yours and allow you to be who you are, and stop, you know. And Don said, that's exactly what he said to me.
Well, he also told me I had to speak up.
Yes, he told you had to speak
so,
up.
you know, it's always a balance. You know, even though we're twin union flame alchemist people, you know, it's still, you gotta keep the motor running right.
I think almost
Even more so, I
yes,
think.
Yeah, even more-
exactly.
yeah.
And that's what he said, because Don said, but my relationship with Julia is amazing. It's
know.
the best marriage I've ever had. And Howard's
He
like,
shredded me.
he
He
said-
shredded me.
even more reason. He said, this is so sacred, you guys have to keep it ultra clean, because you're going to... And I remember sitting there on the bed and going, I totally got what he meant. He was still he was like, but it's great. And I'm like, no, it has to be better than great. It has to be, we have to really clean it every inch of the way, because there's so many subtle layers to the
Yeah.
way our energy connects.
100%.
We use this on the road. We use it particularly when we get home and we're fried, you know.
To unpack the things that we didn't have time to unpack while we were so busy.
Do you ask each other the opposite one, or do you just take it responsibility?
We take it in turns. So we'll start by
We'll try and hold each other's hands
look
and
at
face
each other.
like this.
We'll set the tone. We'll say, Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, You know, whoever we want, our ascended masters, guides, beings of love and light that work with and through us individually and as a couple, please be with us, hold this space for us now as we work together. And then Don will go, okay, I'm going to start. And then he'll look at me and he'll say, well, let's just give them a little role play. Can you think of something right now?
Oh, wow. I've got to. Okay. Okay, this is going to be kind of the most recent, and it's going to be kind of trivial, but it doesn't matter. It works this way. Julia, forgive me for the way I was talking to you and the tone I had with you when we were trying to find Kimber's place.
Thank you. I forgive you.
Please forgive me.
I forgive you. I love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then I will say, I'm sorry for...
Yeah, it goes
It
back
just
and
goes
forth.
back and
I mean,
forth.
I've really simplified it. You know, if you really think about like something, if you really feel in your heart space and go deep, it's about a lot more than what I just said. But since I'm like got performance anxiety, I mean, you know, whatever. I was like just trying to make it, but I
No,
hope
it probably goes underneath that. Like,
Oh,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. But
yeah.
so did it? I mean, did it kind of get the
I,
idea
get,
across?
I got
for
the
you?
idea. And then
You get-
underneath that stress, there's something else.
And it goes
Yes.
back and forth. And you know, if when we're tired and we come home from off the road, we're not at our best. And everybody needs their space. So, but there's still the stuff that comes up where we go, we better clean this up.
We better talk about
it just,
this.
and because ultimately, it just really, you're the one who's asking for forgiveness is the biggest benefactor of saying, I'm sorry for having done this.
It's
That's so much. That's really healthy for everyone to implement something like that and talk, because I deal with a lot of people, and so many times they're like, well, I could never tell my husband that. And I'm like, what?
yeah.
What? Like, this person, you should be able to tell them everything.
Yeah, I
Yes.
think,
It blows my mind.
yeah, it almost gets harder the longer you're with someone. I think that you are so invested, and yet we get lazy, we get sloppy, we get over familiar. That
Then years go by and you haven't said it, and it's like, well, now it's a little late.
exactly, and you just need to the through line of communication, even if it feels clunky or difficult. I mean, especially if it feels difficult, that idea of being vulnerable and being able to say, I'm sorry for being an asshole, or the way that I spoke to you. You know, we have our
And then to
common
also
things that we
ask-
both do to each other when we get lazy.
The asking for forgiveness part is huge, though.
Yeah.
That's the part that for me really shifted it from any other exercise I've ever done.
Yeah, that's incredible. It's vulnerable too.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we all want to think we're perfect.
Far from.
But I do think with the sacred union is more important. Like, it's just like with the healing, it's like, I think of it like a Honda, you know, like a regular relationship might be like a Honda where you can just run it to the ground. You don't need to change its oil. It's fine. But like this kind of relationship's like a Porsche where you get a speck of dust and the engine starts to break down.
It's.
Yes,
I
yes.
absolutely agree.
So that's a great analogy.
The fine tuning, like a
Yeah.
racehorse. You know, like we just stay on this stuff.
The Formula One.
If we want to go musical, it's like if you have a $200,000 cello, you've got to take really good care of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I totally agree with you. There's something about the deeper we go, or the more we're aware of our vibration and cleaning things up, the less we can get away with.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that, I feel, is not, it's a blessing that we get to do that, as opposed to sometimes when I think, oh God, I wish it was just, we could just coast. Why can't we just coast? I'm so exhausted.
Everybody feels that from time to time.
Yeah.
You know, when you hit a certain level of tired or
Yeah.
soul exhaustion.
Soul exhaustion.
Yeah,
Soul
and
exhaustion.
given all the energy in the world right now, and the intensity and the tendency, it's so easy to go to polarity. It's so easy to say this is good and this is bad, and I mean that's just almost like the addiction we're all struggling with. Like, can I sit in the middle? Can I just walk this middle road and go, I'm like everybody's like me. I have my good, I have my bad, and I have my bits I want to bury under the sofa and never show to a living soul. That's the real deal.
Yeah, for sure. It's a testament to your guys' love that you can do this on the road and you're together off the road, you're together on the road, and that's a lot of together time.
It is, yeah. And definitely, for sure, we do like to go our separate ways when we get home.
It's amazing.
Days where we just, quite happily sit
We're
and stare
blessed
at
that
a
we have a
wall.
Because I know coming off the road's traumatic in a way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're spent. And very often, I think your partner, whether they're a twin flame or not, you're so comfortable at that point that they don't get the best of you. You just, it's like I've spent all my socializing and my being animated and on
yeah.
the after show hangs that last 2 hours longer than the show, and we're all just like, yeah, okay. But
Yeah,
to get home and oh,
No,
it's
it's you again. Yeah, it's you
Oh, I
again.
love that so
Without
much.
let's get rid of that stuff, and there you are. There's the reason.
Yeah. Do you think your unions brought you closer to God?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Absolutely.
It to me, this is the workspace to clean up and to activate and to expand into more of who I am. And whenever I think it's what you've done, I'm like, wait a minute, what have I got to learn about
Likewise.
this that is I'm not seeing about this? And that I think it helps to have a partner who is on the same page with. I mean, like when I met Don, he'd already been worked on. He'd already had his moment of like being on that anvil and being smashed around and ta-da, your cancer journey. And I was blessed. And then that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to.
Yeah. Do you find that mirror where like you're projecting on him and then it's you, or you're projecting on her and then you really.
We are just the
Always. Yeah.
perfect match. I think there was somebody did a TED talk, didn't they, about like, you never marry Mr. Wrong. He's always Mr. Right.
Yeah.
It's just you don't want to admit that to yourself.
I love that.
You've got that work to do with that person. All my relationships, I can look back and that idea of like that dysfunction that I was living with my parents, I was playing out. I was drawing that type of, and still to this day, when Don has a tendency to get animated, should we say, or charged, and the tone, and I'm like, I can still, especially if I'm not on my game, if I'm overtired or hormonal or whatever's going on, I can slip into like, it becomes my mother. It becomes that parent that I was terrified of.
And yet there was, I don't know if I spoke to you about this. She was over there with her parents. Remember that time that you were riding home on the train? Yes. And I got like Kimber style downloads. It was not me. And I was texting her. You were basically raised your parents. They're your children. This is why we're like this. This is like that. Next text, a whole bunch of other stuff. Next text, a whole bunch of stuff. And I'd say, don't talk. It's not me. It's just coming through me.
Yeah.
I couldn't even. I was texting like a 15-year-old girl. I could barely.
He
I'm
can't
like
do that
this.
normally.
And it was just like.
Normally
went
it's
on
all
for an hour
thumbs.
straight, and I remember thinking at one point I was just like, this is shit Kimber does, and and
It was so on the money because I'd just spent like 2 days with my parents. I'd gone up by myself and I was like, I had all these kind of, like emergency provisions in place. Like, okay, how am I going to set my boundaries?
all this
How am I gonna
planning
do
in
this?
place.
I had all these affirmations to say, and
And it all-
I came away. No, I did pretty good.
yeah,
but I came away and I
yeah.
was kind of, some stuff had happened and I was unpacking it on the train. And on the train back to London, Dunn was just like, basically saying they've been your children in so many lives. So that's why now the dynamic is flipped in this one. It's still, there's that tendency for them to just be children.
Of course.
And I ended up in the middle again with this sort of emotional pin that I was drawing them together, and the whole dynamic of being that parentified child. And
But she
having
got
to-
the whole 411 about it on text from LA to the train going to London, from Suffolk to London.
And then we'd go into a tunnel and I'd lose him and I'd be like,
So-
and then I'd come out of the tunnel and suddenly there'd be all this
Yeah, and you
stuff
don't
I'd have
text
to
very
read.
often. Like,
No.
No. And I particularly don't get like, it's like, it was downloads, just like you talk about. And I was just a channel. Never found them on
Oh
my
yes,
phone.
that's right. They
Any of them.
disappeared.
Not
I
one
can't find
on
them
my phone.
either.
Yeah. It was just, and so you say, did you feel, is there more God in your life? Yes, God is everywhere, constant in our lives.
Yeah.
That's God. Up where we live, on indigenous land, basically. There's,
Magical.
the great spirits up there all, it's God all the time. When the wind goes by, I feel God. When I stand on a rock and see the Sierras, I just go,
Hello, Great Spirit.
yeah, hello, Great Spirit. Thank you, God. It's everywhere
So
in our
magical.
lives.
Do you remember when I was working on you once and there was a Native American man working on you with like a chief? Like you were in, like suddenly you landed in like a canoe and then there was a chief, but it was like me, but not working. Do you remember that?
Yes,
You
yes,
telling
vaguely.
Recently, this woman was on my table and she got up. She's like, "What just happened to me?" She goes, "There was a Native American chief working on me at the same time you were." And I was like, my friend Dawn said the same thing once. Isn't that magical?
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, just that great spirit because it reminded me of that land up there, and
Yeah,
it
and
was
there
just
used to
magical.
be an Indian elder. I think I never experienced this, but somebody who was big into all this up there told me there was an American Indian elder up there who was a great healer that the Pope visited even several times.
Wow.
Yeah, this was like back in the 60s.
I bet I'm just getting that's him because I feel it's always up there. Like it feels like he comes in and I'm somehow connected. And I think it was through you and that land where I got connected to him because
The initial
it's
connection.
I've felt him several times and I always know when someone has shamanic energy because he'll come in. But this woman saw him and she was just like, what just happened? I was like, that's
Wow.
Yeah,
because you were on one side and he was on the other side.
Oh
it's
gosh.
everywhere if
Yeah.
you just open your eyes to it. If you just kind of shift your perception a little bit, it's all around us, always, everywhere.
Always.
Yeah, I think that's the trick, is just recognizing it's everywhere all at once, all the time. You don't have to access something outside yourself. But I think also, like, I think that the story we told is testament to the fact that there was a lot to get through and to unpack
That's
initially.
beautiful.
And then we got to this point where there's some pretty calm seas now,
I love that so much.
Every now and then it'll get bumpy. It's like you said, before we started recording this, don't get cocky. Don't ever think it's all done, because there's layers and layers and layers. We're dealing with lifetimes. And then you add lineage, you add your family and your lineage and all the thought, word, and deed that has accumulated. I mean, even the subconscious thoughts we don't even realize we're having. Somebody, not that long ago, we were on a call with this guy and he was talking about those micro judgments that we make. He realized he lived in this building and shared the elevator going up and down to his apartment. And he said, I was realizing that every time somebody got into the elevator with me and I was sharing space with someone I didn't know, I was just quietly making some kind of micro judgment. And I loved that. I was like, what a great way to describe it.
That's so
It
great.
can be the tiniest little
Do you know
thing.
what I do is I blast the person with love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll sit there and blast them with love or like anyone on the street and I just like
Yeah.
hoping they feel some kind of shift of energy, which
And we do the same.
and you
And
guys do that on stage and
yeah, we know it works.
it 100% works.
Sometimes, like you said, you will occasionally get an adverse reaction, but it's okay.
I love that.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah, I even feel, I mean, we've known each other for, gosh, a long time now, but I feel a difference, even a more harmonious union, like a more calm togetherness. Like even at the beginning, there was still, you guys were beautiful and magical, but you could feel there was still like things
yeah.
coming up and mirrors coming up. And
Really? So
Yeah.
you get that sense
yeah,
of
I feel it's like so much more calm and
Thank you,
settled.
Carol. Thank
It's
you.
beautiful.
That's good. I love
Yeah,
that.
I love that.
Good to know.
So my last question is, what advice would you give someone that was new on this journey that are experiencing something similar you guys experienced? How you guys anchored in the union?
I would say trust the process. And
Yeah,
we'd use that
I was
word.
going to say don't give up.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Trust the process.
Process is it takes as long as it takes. And you will start to feel like you're slipping back sometimes, and that's part of the growth curve. That whole thing of 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. Recognizing when something's going on. A big thing for me is it's not personal. And it's hard to feel that when you're with someone, that everything feels so personal. But when they are triggered, it's not about you. And that is very hard for us. Yes, it's the hardest. It's the hardest thing. And then the other one I love is also because it invariably you trigger each other, and there's this ping, 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 and it's like, don't forget to say to yourself, "Of course I feel this way." Whatever the feeling is, acknowledge that your child is. It's happening for a reason, and trust that. Trust that it's happening. Follow the crumbs. Follow the feeling of that. And take time to unpack it and know that you will get there. You will get there.
Yeah, it's like, I would say, just constantly practice forgiveness.
Yeah.
You know, to yourself, to the world, to everything that's around you, everything you see on media, anything. Practice forgiveness.
I love that.
And then at the end of the day, know that this too shall pass. We get a big sense of that living up in the middle of nowhere in the country. I can stand on a rock that has potholes in it, the people that put there hundreds of years before my family came to live there. That passed. This too shall pass.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
Gorgeous. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. This was absolutely fascinating and beautiful. And I'm so, so grateful for you guys.
So
Beyond.
grateful for
It's
you,
so
Kimber.
good to see you
It's
again.
so
fun.
good to see
I
you guys. I
know.
just adore you.
We love you so much.
Love you
Love
so
you too.
much.
Love you too.
So good. Thank you for watching Beyond the Veil. Please like, subscribe, and share so we can grow our channel. If you have a story you would like to share, please email nandipresents@gmail.com. If you're interested in classes or personal sessions, please visit nandi.co, Nandi.co, and have a magical day.